Okay. Okay. Can everyone see my screen? I just want to make sure that everyone can see the presentation on their end.
I can see it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Yeah, feel free to unmute at any point if you have a
Yeah,
question.
I can
I
see
Okay.
can
it.
see it. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Well, we'll go ahead and get started. And we'll see if any other families join us tonight. I'll try to keep an eye out on the waiting room as well. Okay, well, thank you so much to everyone for being here tonight. I know that your time is really valuable, so I appreciate you choosing to spend some of it with me this evening, and I think it'll be worth your while. I'll just tell you, this is one of my favorite events of the year. And, at our school, we value making a positive impact on our students and want to give them the best preschool experience, but I also feel an obligation to help families figure out what comes next after their time here at Wilmington Bilingual Preschool, because that is a really big decision. And I just find that sometimes families don't even know what what the next steps are, how to register for kindergarten when their child is eligible. So I do like to take some time to go over that with everyone and at least get you started on the right path. One thing about it is, one of my favorite things is just coaching families and offering guidance on navigating all the options. And I think that's a good thing here in and around New Hanover County. We do have so many options. I think that's wonderful. And it's really not a one size fits all. So there's no one pathway that's perfect for every child. So I really do enjoy chatting with families and just coaching them and offering as much guidance as I can. So to get started, it's just a good idea to figure out what's available and then continue to do your own research, talk to other parents, do tours, etc. But we'll take the first step together tonight. Okay, let's see. So just really quick, a little bit about me. I know that everyone sees me every day at the school, but um, sometimes I don't know people know about my background, but my passion is Spanish immersion, and I just really love coaching families. I've been involved in New Hanover County Schools since 2003, and I first started teaching in 2003 when I moved down here to Wilmington from college from Greensboro, and I started teaching. I graduated from UNC Greensboro in 2003. And one thing about UNC Greensboro, too, that I like to mention is that they are known for their education program. So I knew that I wanted to be a teacher. And I knew that UNC Greensboro had a very strong education program. So that's why I chose to go there. Um, and they actually set a lot of the standards for early childhood education in North Carolina. So I was a freshman there in 1999, graduated in 2003, moved down here to Wilmington, and I was a high school teacher at Laney High School. I was there from 2003 to 2006 when my son was born, and he's now 18. So time definitely flew. But I was at Laney High School. I was the Spanish 1 department head. In 2007, I earned my North Carolina early childhood credential to start working with young children. And really, my first experience working with younger children was in Greensboro when I was a sophomore. I worked at Jones Foreign Language Immersion School there. So that was kind of my first experience, I think, um, with immersion. And I was just fascinated with the concept. And so at that point, I really knew that I fell in love with the concept of language immersion. I was so amazed to see how much the kids were learning. And I thought, I have to pursue this. I really wanted to learn more. So that kind of set me on that path. But I did start as a high school teacher. And I think sometimes some of what we do here at Wilmington Bilingual Preschool, I think I kind of integrate some of what I did as a high school teacher too, all those years ago. I love having everything organized. I like having I guess, a schedule. Where we plan out all of our activities for the whole semester. So it's kind of semester based here. But some of that I did bring from being a high school teacher. But I did start working with young children in 2007. In 2023, I earned an administrator credential, so I'm a level 2 North Carolina child care administrator, and level 3 is the highest. So we'll see if I go for level 3. I'm taking classes right now, so we'll see if I can get there. But besides all of that, I'm also a mom. I have 5 kids. My oldest is 18, so they're 18, 16. I have 18, 16, 14, 12, and then I have a 9-year-old. So they're all in New Hanover County school system. And actually, right now, I have one in elementary school, two in middle school, and two in high school. So I just feel like I know quite a bit about the education system here in Wilmington, and I'm well positioned to help families make the best choice for them. So that's me in a nutshell. Okay. So tonight's presentation, what are we going to talk about tonight? So the first topic will be very basic. When does my child start kindergarten? And it seems like a simple question, but it's not as easy as you think. So we'll go over that. Second, we'll talk about kindergarten options in Southeastern North Carolina. What are the different types of elementary school programs that are out there? We'll also talk about how to register for kindergarten. That's important. And then finally, continuing Spanish after Wilmington Bilingual Preschool. And that's important because I know that families sometimes feel like they've invested so much in this concept of language immersion. So I want you to know, what can you do after you finish, after your child finishes their time here with our school? What ways can you continue to incorporate Spanish as a part of their life? And then we'll also have a question and answer at the end. One thing that I do like to do is just finish the presentation. I'll go through everything, and then the presentation should be about 20 minutes. And then at the end, I'll definitely open it up for questions, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have if we can just save those for the end. Okay, so first question, when does my child start kindergarten? Well, in New Hanover County, children must turn 5 on or before August 31st, and there are no exceptions to that. I have not seen anyone be successful getting their child enrolled in New Hanover County schools if they are not 5 on August 31st. We have literally had students who turn 5 on September the 1st, and they are not able, they've been denied entry. So they really do have to turn 5. I think it's pretty much the same. That's pretty standard. So that should be the same in Pender County as well as Brunswick County. If you know different, let me know, but that's generally what the rule is. So we make our cutoff for our classes at Wilmington Bilingual Preschool. They match the school system because we want students to be able to finish all of our classes and then be able to go into kindergarten. So that's why we make our cutoff for starting and for moving up to the next class. Also, we go by their age on August 31st. So because of that August 31st deadline, the kids with the summer birthdays naturally will end up being the younger students in their class. Okay, so what does that mean? If your child has a June, July, or August birthday, that means that they just made that cutoff. So they will be the youngest in their group, and that will actually follow them throughout their whole school career. And we'll talk about that and what the implications might be for that a little bit later. If your child has a fall birthday, such as September, October, November, they technically missed that cutoff. So they have to wait a whole another year, and they will be 5, and then they'll turn 6 at the beginning of the school year. So that means they'll end up throughout their school careers being the older students. So that's something to consider, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But just to get started, they do have to be 5 before they can enter kindergarten. One of the big questions is, should I delay kindergarten for my child? There is evidence that older students, more mature, outperform younger students. So mature, again, would be what I was just saying, the fall birthday, September, October, November. And then your younger students are going to be the ones with the June, July, and August birthdays. I would say winter and spring kids fall kind of in between. So, obviously the closer you are to some of these months that I mentioned, then they'll be on one extreme or the other. But some of the kids, like maybe February, March students, are kind of in the middle, so they could go either way. But one thing that I like to mention to parents is that there is evidence that younger students are more likely to be diagnosed with or evaluated for ADHD or a related attention disorder. And it's something that just happens, unfortunately, in education. I remember studying this. Some, people tend to have a bias towards the older, more mature kids. They're less wiggly. It's easier for them to focus and pay attention, and that's just what happens. So sometimes the younger kids, they're going to be more wiggly. They're moving around more. They're not quite as mature, and teachers, not just teachers, but sometimes parents even have that pressure for them to perform to the standards of some of the older children. So they do get labeled, I think, sometimes in class, or they're more likely to get labeled. It just really depends on the environment that they're in. So I have had families who come to me, and I know of other schools, that preschools, that kind of push this. and at least considering the question here, would waiting another year for your child to start kindergarten give them advantage throughout their school career? And that's called redshirting, or that's kind of the name for it, redshirting. It just gives them an extra year to mature and excel, and an extra year to save for college. That's one thing too that I mentioned to parents. So rather than being in kind of a hurry, which some families are in a hurry, they want their child to go ahead and start kindergarten as soon as possible. But I have had quite a few families who say to me, no, I want my child to wait, especially if they have those summer birthdays, and maybe give them an extra year to mature. And we even have some students who will come to our school from other schools. Maybe they finish the program at another preschool and they want kind of like a gap year before they start kindergarten. So they will come to our school and do our advanced pre-K2/kindergarten program before heading off to, I guess, their real school career in kindergarten, wherever they're going to be attending. So it's just something to think about. I would say do your research, talk to other families. Also, you can talk to me. I try to be as honest as possible with families, and I give people my honest opinion about whether their child is ready. Sometimes kids, even though they're younger, they're super ready and they're ready to move on, I think. But I'm definitely always available to chat with you more about your particular situation. Okay, I'm going to pause here just for 1 second and make sure that no one is in the waiting room, because I just get so paranoid thinking that someone's waiting to come in and that I'm not letting them in. Usually it pops up on the screen for me, so I think we're okay. Let's see. Okay, I don't see anyone, so I think we're good. Okay, continuing. So the next question that parents ask me is, what types of kindergartens are there? So we'll go over the types of kindergarten programs that we have, at least in our area, starting with public schools. Public schools are free. They are county-based. So you are limited to attending public school in the county where you live or where you reside with your address. The assignment is based on your address, so they do ask for that, and they're very strict with it. I'll tell you, they ask when you're registering your child for kindergarten, I think they want your license. I'm pretty sure they ask for a birth certificate for the child, which makes sense. But they ask for your license, and I think they also ask for proof of residence, something like a electric bill or I've heard people, or like the mortgage statement. And the reason they want that is because, well, your address determines which school your child is assigned to. And let's just be honest, some schools are very coveted in the county. There's some schools that a lot of families want to be placed in, and there's other schools that aren't so coveted. So they want to make sure that there's no funny business, that people aren't saying, well, I live here, and when they really don't. Um, the schools are within public schools, we have three main types. We have your traditional public schools, which is just the school that your child is assigned to, districted for. We have year-round schools. There are two in New Hanover County. We'll go over those. And then you also have magnet schools. Magnet schools are specialty public schools. They're public schools that have a theme, and we'll go over some of those. Then you have private schools. Private schools are tuition-based, where families pay all or a good portion of the cost for their child to attend the school. Sometimes there are scholarships available, but generally speaking, families do pay all of the cost for private schools. You also have charter schools. Charter schools, sometimes I hear people confuse charter schools and magnet schools. Magnet schools are part of the public school system, and they're county-based as well. Charter schools are free and they're publicly funded. There has been an explosion of charter schools in North Carolina ever since the North Carolina General Assembly opened it up and made it easier to start a charter school. So we've seen so many new charter schools opening up for elementary school, middle, and even high school. And basically, it's just to give families another option if they want to opt out of the public schools. One thing about charter schools is they are open application, so they're not county-based. So if you live in New Hanover County, you could apply to go to a charter school that's located in Brunswick County, one that's in Pender County. It's completely open. Anyone can apply. That's part of the deal with the charter school. And some of them are themed. So for example, you have Glow. You may have seen the buses, Glow for Girls. That's a high school charter school, and I think they might have a middle school now. And I heard they may be doing an elementary school. And then you have schools like, for example, Island Montessori. That's a charter school headed towards Carolina Beach. So those schools, they are free. And depending on, it just depends. Sometimes it's easy to get in certain charter schools, and some of them are hard to get into, so they tend to be lottery based. Then you also have homeschool. I do want to mention that we do have some families sometimes who go that direction. And if you do homeschool, there are some great support groups out there for homeschool. CHU is one of the support groups that I know of. I think it stands for Christian Homeschool, something else, education. So CHU is one group that's local. I know that there's a Catholic homeschool group, and then there's probably several others for families that kind of want to create their own curriculum for their child. And there's definitely nothing wrong with that if that's something that you want to do. But just keep in mind that all of these options, public, private, charter, they all vary in quality. So you definitely have to do your research. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about traditional schools. Traditional schools are county-based. Like I said, they're based on your address. The traditional schools run their schedule late August through early June, and kids tend to have the summer off. The hours, at least this year for the traditional schools for elementary, are 7:40 a.m. to 2:45 p.m. So you will need aftercare after school if you are working, and if you have to work past 2:45, that is something that you'll need to work on as after school care, because they get out at 2:45. Traditional schools tend to have larger class sizes, but it varies between 14 to 24 students I've heard of in kindergarten at the traditional schools. And again, they vary in quality, but generally speaking, most of the elementary, the public schools, the quality correlates with the socioeconomic status of the student base. And that's just kind of the truth. So there's some really, really great elementary schools in Wilmington. There's some, the public schools, I mean, and then there's some that are maybe not so great. And then there's a lot that are in the middle. And the in the middle ones, I would say, kind of depend. They all tend to offer options for students who are identified as academically gifted. So that's one thing that I can say about New Hanover County is that they do have a pretty good academically gifted program at most of the schools that I've been involved with. Even with my kids, I have experience with that. They usually offer supplemental higher level thinking, starting with kindergarten. They have a resource teacher that goes around to every class, just doing little lessons with the kids, and that helps them to identify. And then in third grade, they're actually identified and pulled out to do the academically gifted. And that program follows them all the way through middle school as well as high school. So, for example, my 16-year-old daughter is at Laney right now, and she was in the academically gifted program when she was in elementary school and middle school. And then now she's at Laney and she's taking honors classes and AP classes. So that's one thing that I can say. I really think they do a pretty good job identifying students with the public schools, and they do have the resources. Um, Typically, they have the resources to be able to offer kids who need a little bit more to offer that to them. There's some schools, I'll just say some of the most coveted schools here are Masonboro Elementary, Wrightsville Beach Elementary, Porter's Neck is a pretty good school, Ogden. Those are some of the schools that families sometimes will actually buy a house when they're researching, try to buy a house so that they can be in that particular school district to get their child in that school because they are pretty good. So just do your research, but also I would say that parent involvement means a lot. Even if your child is going to a school that's okay, that's not the best, I have found that if you're an involved parent and giving your kid lots of opportunities outside of school to extracurriculars, going on trips, I think that they'll do pretty well. And if you're involved in their education, so within the public schools, you have a couple of special options in Wilmington that I did want to mention. We have year-round schools. So there's two in Wilmington at this time, Coddington Elementary, and that's on the south end of town. And then there's Eaton Elementary on the north end of town. Yeah, these programs they start in July, and then the school year ends in June, and then there's a short summer break, and then they start back up in July. But they also have breaks throughout the year. So year-round schools take breaks in October, December, March, and then June. But those bigger breaks, you get about 3 weeks off. You can check the calendar online if you go to the New Hanover County Schools website, but one benefit would just be one reason some people like the year-round schools because they feel like students may retain the information better if they don't have that really long summer break. Again, it just depends on the child, I think, and then what you do over the summer with your child. But also some families like the schedules. They like being able to take maybe 3 weeks of vacation at off-season times in October. So that's something to consider if you're wanting to travel and take your child maybe to a Spanish-speaking country or do some adventures or just visit family. It is kind of nice to have 3 weeks off in October and December, March, maybe when other people aren't traveling. It's kind of nice. One thing about them is that they are lottery based, so you do have to put your name put it in a hat, or the school system, they draw names. And if you get in, you get in. If you don't, you don't. I remember years ago, I think it was probably 2000. gosh, I guess it was 2011. I put my son's name, he's 18 now, but I put his name in for Eaton and we didn't get in. So I just moved on and started with our assigned school, but there is a sibling guarantee. So if an older child gets in, then all subsequent siblings will be automatically given a spot in the school. So definitely check out the year-round schools options if you're interested. There's also magnet schools. Magnet schools are part of the public school system. Um, they have the same hours, but they're specialty schools. So the magnet schools here in Wilmington are Rachel Freeman School of Engineering, Snipes Academy of Arts and Designs, Gregory International, dual language Spanish immersion. The magnet schools are also lottery based, but there is a sibling guarantee. So if one child gets in, all the other siblings get in as well. Again, because these are public schools, they're county-based. So if you are outside of New Hanover County, you cannot apply to any of these particular schools, unfortunately. So if you live in Pender or Brunswick, you cannot apply to Gregory International. It's just not an option. Then we have private schools. Private schools, as I mentioned, are tuition and fee-based. That private schools are allowed to accept or deny applications based on a variety of criteria. So most of the private schools in our area have an application process. And I know because we quite frequently get applications from other families. They say, hi, we're applying to get my child into the Friends School of Wilmington or into Cape Fear Academy. And so I receive the application and I usually help the teachers fill it out. I'm usually the one who fills it out, but I always ask the teachers for their input. And they sit in my office and we fill those applications out together. So there is an application process, and private schools are allowed to admit who they want to and not admit who they want to as well. So charter schools, it has to be even because it's publicly funded. So we'll talk about that a little bit later, but charter schools tend to be lottery based. With the private schools, some of the well-known private schools here in Wilmington are Wilmington Christian Academy, the Friends School of Wilmington, New Horizons, St. Mary's, St. Mark's Catholic Private Schools, Cape Fear Academy, Peace Rose Montessori. Our Wilmington Bilingual Preschool Kindergarten is a private program as well. One thing about private programs is that they vary in quality. Some are amazing, some are okay. But I think the bigger question with the private schools that I've noticed when speaking with families is it just depends on family values. What is it that you value? What's important to you? Is it a rigorous academic curriculum? Then in that case, you might be looking for certain private schools on this list. Do you value a religious education? Is that something, a religious component? Would you like that? Then if that's the case, then we'd be looking at some of the religious schools on this list. And that is important to some people. They want to integrate that into their child's education. Do you value character education? I know that the Friends School of Wilmington is a very well-known school that's been around for many, many years, not just in Wilmington, but in general, the Friends School. And they're big on character education. So it just depends on what's important to you, what matters the most to you. So that's something to think about. And then some people like the prestige. They like saying that their child goes to a certain school, which I can understand that too. So there's something for everyone, but there's just a lot of different things to consider there. Okay, finally, charter schools, as I mentioned, are publicly funded. They are also free. They're open to anyone. They're not restricted by the county, but they are lottery based typically. They're often themed. So some examples would be Island Montessori is a pretty popular charter school. Cape Fear Center for Inquiry is another one that a lot of families want to get into. Glow Academy for Girls, Wilmington School of the Arts, ALA Coastal up on the northern end of town, Charter Day School, Douglas Academy. And there's probably some new ones that I don't even know about because as I was telling you, a lot of charter schools are popping up now. Again, charter schools also vary in quality, so definitely do your research. Some are amazing. You can kind of tell by, I would say, by the number of people on the waiting list. You could call them and ask, hey, how do I get into the school? How can I apply? And they'll give you their application process. And some of them have, really long, they put you in the lottery and then draw names. But anyways, just talk to people, visit them, and look into the charter school if you're wanting one of these themed type schools. Okay, let's see. So now that we've talked about the different types of school, we'll discuss how to register for kindergarten. New Hanover County Schools registration starts on March the 1st, and this year they're doing March 1st to the 15th. Kindergarten packets go home. We actually sent some home today that they dropped off. There's a QR code, or you can also go to the New Hanover County Schools website, which I have here on the screen, but I'll also email it out at the end. I'll email it out when I send the link to the presentation. But one thing you can do is you can go to the website and you can just put in your address and find out what school your child would be districted for next year. So sometimes they redistrict. So I will tell you, my kids, when they were young, my older children, we were districted for Murrayville, which was a great school on the north end of town. We really liked Murrayville, but then they went through redistricting, they redraw the lines, and they sent us to Blair. So sometimes that can happen, but if you'd like to see where they'd be at next year, you can definitely go and put your address in. Okay, I'm going to pause right here while I just check and make sure nobody's hanging out in the waiting room. But while I'm doing that, does anyone have a question? I guess this might be a good point just to kind of stop in case someone has to leave. Does anyone have a question about anything I've said so far? No question? Okay. All right, going once, going twice. All right, I guess I'll just continue then. Is everyone still there?
Yes, I'm still
We're
here.
here. We're just, bedtime and all of that. So we're kind of running
Still
around like
here.
crazy. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Thank
okay.
you as well.
No worry. And I'm
Had a
just checking that.
Oh yeah, will
Oh,
the slides be available afterward or
yes, I just saw that question in the chat room. So yes, the slides, I will send these to everyone afterwards as well. That's a good idea.
thank you.
Okay. All right. Okay, well, I'll keep going then. Let's see. All right, so moving into how to register for kindergarten. So we talked about that. So just go to the website. You can register there online, fill out all the paperwork, and then you'll get the school their necessary proof of residence that they request, which again is usually driver's license for the parents to verify that you are the parents, and then also birth certificate and proof of residence. But all that information is available on the website. Okay, next question that parents ask me, how do I continue Spanish immersion after Wilmington Bilingual Preschool? So I'll go through some of the different options because that is important. I know that parents have invested a lot in making sure their child had a great Spanish base. And before I go through these options, I just want to say something. I will say that your child has had an incredible head start here. And I just think about myself. I consider myself to be fully fluent in Spanish. It's a language that I feel super comfortable in. I use it every day, almost all day with our staff and with families as well, with the students. And I didn't start learning Spanish until I was 18 years old. I took Latin in high school. I was lucky that my high school offered Latin. I loved it. I loved conjugating verbs. I just kind of like my brain works that way. And I really love Latin. But in college, I decided, you know what, I need to move into something a little bit more useful, a little bit more modern. So I did decide to major in Spanish as well as education. So, but I would say starting as an 18-year-old, even then I was able to have a pretty high level of fluency in Spanish. So it's just incredible to me to see these kids so young learning Spanish. And I know families sometimes feel bad if they make a decision not to send their child, for example, to Gregory International, to a Spanish immersion school, if they go to an English school. But know that what they've learned, they have a great base and it can always be reactivated later. So I just don't want families to feel guilty if they make another choice, especially if they decide not to continue with Spanish immersion after this. It's not wasted time. They've made so many connections in their brain and it can definitely be reactivated. I've seen that with my kids without going into too much detail, but I had two of my kids, my youngest kids went to Wilmington Bilingual Preschool, but I chose an English language school for them on the north end of town just because with 5 kids, I already had my children on this side of town and I couldn't send 2 more downtown to Gregory plus our preschools. I just thought I would go crazy. And sometimes you have to make the best decision for you and be realistic about what you can do and know your own limits. But my children have been able to do the after school program. They've been able to maintain their Spanish. And I've actually been shocked at how well my 9-year-old is doing with Spanish because he never seemed super interested because I started him when he was 1. So he was almost kind of like, oh, my mom's making me do this. But now he's really into Spanish. He goes to the after school program on the north end of town. He's Maestra Mary's assistant there now. And also, curiously, he's been super interested in other languages. So at first, he said he wanted to learn French. And then now he's learning German and he's actually doing pretty well. He's teaching himself with Duolingo. Same thing with my 16-year-old. She is taking Spanish at Laney High School. And so there was a gap from when she started learning Spanish as a little girl. Then there was really kind of a gap for elementary, middle school, but then she's taking it at Laney and she's just excelling, doing amazing. So now she's in Spanish level 3 there. So I just want families to know that there's no one path that's perfect. There's lots of different pathways that you can go. Okay, so what are the choices though? There's Gregory International. It is a K through 8, so kindergarten. You can apply in kindergarten. It is a magnet school in New Hanover County. And that's the best option that we have right now. At Gregory, it is a dual Spanish-English immersion school. So the kids have a Spanish language, a native Spanish language teacher and a native English teacher. And they spend half of the day with their Spanish teacher and then half of the day with their English teacher. And so they get all subjects, math, science, reading, everything in both languages. And that goes all the way up through 8th grade. I've been told that in 6th grade, they add on a 3rd language, Mandarin Chinese. So I don't know if they're still doing that. But what I do know is that Gregory's doing tours. They're doing info sessions. And I sent out a little sheet about that. And we also have it at on the counter at our school. But there's going to be another one at the end of the month. And then there'll be one more in March. So definitely, even if your child is still 2 or 3, go to Gregory, just go to the information session, see what you think. Learn more about it. But we do have quite a few families who apply to Gregory, and recently they've been very happy. One thing that's important to know about schools is that programs evolve. And this is not just Gregory, but this is also, I've heard of other charter schools who had not the best reputation when they started, but it just kind of took them a little bit of time to gain their momentum and start to improve. And now people, they figure things out, work out all the kinks. A new program, there's a lot of things to work out. So I have heard that Gregory has improved, that they got a new principal, and most of the families now are pretty happy with Gregory. Okay, some of the private schools, quite a few of the private schools and some of the charter schools offer Spanish in elementary school, which is pretty, sadly, the public schools do not offer Spanish, and it just breaks my heart because it's such a missed opportunity, I think. But I do know that quite a few of the private schools, Cape Fear Academy has Spanish starting in elementary school and all the way up to high school. And I think, let's see, Friends School also has Spanish. So definitely just check when you're asking around. You can find out if they offer it. Most public middle schools and high schools, at least high school, offer Spanish. I will tell you, I know that Spanish is required at most of the high schools. Middle schools, it's a maybe. But high schools definitely, like I was saying with my daughter, in order to go to a North Carolina public university, you have to have 2 semesters of the same foreign language. And most schools can only find a Spanish teacher. So they usually have Spanish. They might have a French teacher, sometimes Latin, but it's usually Spanish. And that's a requirement for entry into North Carolina universities. So that's why you will have a chance to take Spanish, your child, in high school. I've been impressed. It's pretty rigorous. I feel like the curriculum looks a lot harder than when I was teaching high school Spanish back 20 years ago. I've looked at my daughter's work because I'm always curious and I'm always looking at her tests and seeing how she did, and she's doing great, but the stuff looks pretty hard to me. So, but she's excelled in it. One thing about high school that I've learned, if you're trying to apply to, I don't know what you would call it, but like Duke or one of the more exclusive schools, you do have to have, most of them require 3 semesters of a foreign language. So keep that in mind. So for UNC system, it's 2 semesters. Some of the private schools require 3. And if your child takes 4 semesters of the same foreign language, then they will graduate with a special endorsement on their diploma. So I think that's kind of neat too. It's called the foreign language endorsement, I think. Okay, let's see. Wilmington Bilingual Preschool, we have an after-school program at both of our locations. We have the after-school program on Spartan Road. It's a 2-day, 2 days a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays. So some students opt for that. And it's actually it's academic based. The students learn how to read and write in Spanish. So that's an option. And they also have fun. So we can talk about that in a little bit more detail. We also have our after school here at our College Road School across from UNCW, where we pick up from Gregory. We have our Wilmington Bilingual Preschool Summer Camp. So that is an option as well. Some of our students come back and spend the summer with us and enjoy summer camp. And we have one of the best camps. It's our Spanish Adventures Camp, where they get to go out and have adventures and go places. And they really love that program. Some families opt to get tutors. There's nannies, Spanish-speaking nannies, Au pair programs where you can hire someone from another country to come and live with you for a year and to help you with childcare, as well as with the language. So we have quite a few families who do that. There's travel. Don't forget about taking your child to other places to visit. That's always a wonderful option for them to see really why they're learning Spanish, to see it used in a practical way in another country. Then there's also apps, YouTube, and self-study. And don't discount those because nowadays with technology, there are so many incredible options to teach yourself Spanish. My husband has taught himself Spanish. He did not study in college, but he's doing amazing and he communicates with our teachers all the time. And he did it with apps, YouTube, and other little programs. So I definitely, if you're an adult and you're wanting to learn Spanish, let me know, and I can guide you on some of the options out there. But also, my kids use the apps. They use it for Spanish, German, and they use it for French as well. So, okay. Gregory International, I think I jumped ahead a little bit and already talked about Gregory. Just a couple of other things about it. Like I said, it is for New Hanover County residents. It's downtown. They do provide transportation. So even if you live in Carolina Beach, you can still get transportation to Gregory if you need it. But that's the only downside for some people is the location is downtown. It's not necessarily convenient for all families. It's lottery based, so you do have to put your name in the lottery and they'll draw names to see who gets in. I will tell you, most families, if you go ahead and apply on the first round, you usually get in. So it's if you apply later on, like in April or May, if they still have spots, then it can become a little tricky. But Gregory has tours in February and March. The way to apply to Gregory is when you're registering for kindergarten, you'll register for New Hanover County Schools as if you're registering for your districted school, but then you'll click the option to be put into the Gregory lottery. Same thing for the year-round schools. You can just choose to be put in the lottery to see if you can get into those schools. But again, right now, if you're wanting your child to continue, it's the best option that we have locally for consistent exposure to Spanish because they will get it every single day. And they do focus on reading, writing, and production of the language there. Our Wilmington Bilingual Preschool students usually excel at Gregory, I'll be honest. They usually do amazing because they've already been exposed to so much Spanish here. So they go into the program with a lot of confidence and usually do pretty well. And they can be leaders and helpers. Okay, let's talk really quick about our Wilmington Bilingual Preschool Kindergarten. We do have a kindergarten program, and it is really incredible program. It's located at our College Road location near UNCW. It is 100% Spanish immersion. So we continue with that because the kids get so much English language. I guess they hear so much English everywhere else. So we really just love to give them one more year of Spanish immersion. We have two options, 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. Some families just want a little half day, but then other families need the extended option. So you can do that as well until 5:30. And that helps if you have maybe a younger sibling in our toddler class or young pre-K class. The kids can be at the same school for one more year, which for some parents, that means the world to them not to have to go to two different schools because I know all about that. Our kindergarten has a small class size. There are 14 students maximum. You know, some days there's only 6 or 7, depending on how many come that day, but it's just such a small, intimate environment. And I did share an interview with Juan and Blake Moises this year. I love to update my parent interviews, and they were sharing their experience with our kindergarten. But that's one thing that Blake mentioned to me that really resonated is that we have such a small environment. Our teachers really know our kids. We focus on literacy, and it is just absolutely incredible to see the kids learning how to read, figuring out how to sound out those words in Spanish. We start with letter sounds, beginning readers. We do Spanish sight words. They learn how to read words. Vocabulary building. Their vocabulary is super impressive, and they also do writing in Spanish. But our kindergarten also integrates kindergarten math based on the North Carolina Standard Course of Study goals. They do math as well. And I think it's an amazing option to, again, give children another year to mature before they go off and start their real school career wherever they're going to be going, whether it's Gregory or to another school. So students can also go to first grade after a kindergarten, but that would require at-home support. I did that with my 4th child, my daughter, who's 12 now. She actually skipped kindergarten and went straight to first grade. But she went to an English language first grade, and she actually did really, really well. But I did have to teach her. I was teaching her English at home and making sure that she would be ready for first grade because I found that kindergarten is pretty easy. So some parents ask, well, how hard is kindergarten? You know, how does my child need to be super, I don't know. I find that kindergarten is basically starts at the beginning and they teach your child most of the skills there. But first grade is a pretty big leap from kindergarten. So if you were wanting your child to go to first grade, they probably would need to test and place into first grade, and you'd want to do some English at home if you're trying to do that. If they're just going to go to kindergarten, then they start from zero pretty much, because there's a lot of kids who go to kindergarten who never went to preschool, at least in the public school system. I know that some of the private schools require preschool on the application, but some of the public schools, for sure, there's kids who had no formal training at all and they do great. So I find that kindergarten, generally speaking, is pretty easy year for most students. Every child is different though. Okay, our summer camp, I mentioned it really quickly. We do have a full day summer camp. It's our Spanish Adventures Camp. It's at College Road. It's for students who are kindergarten through fifth grade, and it's in June, July, and August. So we do take a little bit of a break in July, but we offer it. Families can just sign up for the week that they want to come. We have some really fun themes, and the kids get to go all over the place. They get to eat at Mexican restaurants and practice their Spanish, which they absolutely love that. Enrollment opens, I said spring, but honestly, people start asking about it in January, and it's usually full by the end of February. So, you know, it's a great summer camp, and it's a good way for your child to come back to our school and spend some time with us over the summer. We also have a half-day summer camp that some kids go back to. It's at our Spartan Road School from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. And our half-day camp is for 13 months to 6 years, so we have them divided up into different classrooms. And again, we have weekly themes there as well, fun themes. They get to do water play days outside where they get to run in the water. We have a garden out there where we grow watermelon and all kinds of peppers and other things. And then they just have fun themes and activities every day. So it's a great option as well for continuing through the summer. But I think the age limit would be about 6 years old. After that, I feel like the kids need a little bit more. So if your child is 7 or up, you'd probably want to opt for our full day summer camp adventures program. I mentioned afternoon school on Spartan Road. I think I talked about it already. If you're interested, we do provide transportation. Well, parents can provide transportation, or we also pick up from Blair and Ogden Elementary out there on Spartan Road. But it's on Tuesday and Thursday afternoons from 2:30 to 5:30. But some families drop off at 3:30, so we're really flexible with that. Most of the activities start, activities start at 3:30. We give the snacks. They have a chance to play outside. They do art. And our teacher's Maestra Mary, she's been doing the program for almost 5 years now. She's from Cuba, and she does a wonderful job with our afternoon school on Spartan Road. So it's a mix of Spanish immersion, a mix of fun and academic. And they also do 2 yearly performances out there. They do a Christmas performance, and then they do an end of the year performance, which is usually a puppet show and some other things that they want to show to the family. So we really enjoy that program as well. And it's a great way just to keep Spanish fresh in your child's mind. Okay, I think I mentioned the after school on College Road, but that's here at this school. We pick up only from Gregory Elementary because we do have a lot of older siblings who maybe go to Gregory, but they'll still have a younger sibling here at College Road while their parents work. So we pick up in our van from Gregory. We bring them back here. They have a snack. They do activities, and it's from 3 o'clock to 5:30 p.m. And it is Spanish immersion as well. So they can just continue that Spanish immersion from Gregory. And the last thing is just don't forget about our parent alumni interviews. I really love those, and I try to add to them every year. I have a couple of families that I'm just dying to interview. Sometimes I'll pick families that are interesting to me, or sometimes I'll pick families who have 2 parents that don't speak any Spanish at all, but their child is a Spanish superstar. Sometimes, I mean, I just try to find a variety of parents to interview who have gone different paths with their child. Some have gone to private school, some go to Gregory, some just go to public school, English language. But I try to interview them about their experience at our school and then how their child is doing now once they've left Wilmington Bilingual Preschool. So check those out. They're on YouTube. I'll send the link in my email after the presentation. I'll send that email tomorrow. But you can definitely watch our interviews. And the newest interview I have here at the top, it was with Juan and Blake Moises, and they gave a great just kind of overview of what it's like raising bilingual children. And also they have a son at Gregory as well as a son here at our Wilmington Bilingual Preschool kindergarten on College Road. Okay, well, I always go over and I'm sorry, but that's it as far as the presentation. So I'll go ahead now and take questions. If anyone has any questions, you can feel free to leave it in the chat, or if you'd like to ask me, you're more than welcome. And just don't forget to unmute if you have a question. Okay, let's see. I think I have a question in the chat. Oh, all set. Thank you very much. Okay, that's good. I covered everything. No questions. Sometimes families, of course, go home and they talk and they think of questions later. So if you think of questions later, you can always email me. I'm always happy to answer via email. If you see me at the school, I'm happy to answer as well. So definitely reach out if you think of something else. Thanks, John. Okay. All righty. Well, if there's no questions, then I'll say good night. And thank you so much to everyone again for joining me. And I hope you have a good evening, and I'll see you soon. Adios.